All right, code elements. Some expected coding elements. For use of strategy pattern, looking back here, what's required? Blaster controls, of course. Keyboard versus NPC. Sound manager. Silent versus normal modes. Of course, we've got that here. The mute. Switch between detractor mode, and then we got the AI and player control. Um, Reviewing all elements of the pattern. Base strategy is basically the mother of all the concrete strategies that like sprout out of it. Like this establishes compute next move. Um, the children basically have used these, but used their own version of it. Um, I will admit, I don't have time to fix this. I do accidentally recreate all of my strategy patterns. Um, but it is what it is. I'll fix it sometime this summer though. I just sort of forgot about that. Um, Here we've got a simple little factory pattern that I've implemented. Yeah, fairly straightforward. It has the like a little instance like call to itself. Um, have to have this. Of course, all of my factories have object pools. That is very important. Object pools, of course, store all the deleted game objects that I have. So, but it like doesn't like delete them. It pretty much recycles them. So I could just pop one back into the game whenever I want. It's very very cool thing I learned. It's actually it's so useful. Might be so useful in like speeding up games. Um, of course. Oh yeah, my head factory keeps track of all active centipedes. Does that every call. I use that so I can use these observer patterns here. I do recall and pause. So I call all of that's because I call all of them and they all get removed from the game or get paused mid game. That's how like the pause is how like they're able to like stop whenever the player dies or how the like game resets itself like after like a player dies and stuff. That's how I'm able to work it. And also lastly, I properly just like clean up of the factory when I'm done. I have this terminate function, I mean method here, and I clean everything up. This applies for pretty much every other factor I have. Pretty much do the same thing. Here we've got another singleton pattern, the game manager, which is probably the most important object I have and kind of must be a singleton object. But yeah, it's also properly deleted and all of that as its little singleton instance variable here. So It is a singleton. It isn't a static class of any sort. So now I've already shown you my command pattern for score, but I also have a command pattern for my sound, which is really cool. So like they all go in here into my sound manager. Um, I get the score command. I also have a mute status in case I want this specifically for the loop sounds because if I don't stop them, they could just go on and on and on. So you want to stop that, of course. Originally I was planning to use that to like as the ratio like turn off volume until the obvious came into mind, just to set the volume to 0. But anyways, we have yeah, um, as the document says, yeah, they're stored into a batch and ran once per frame. As I've already mentioned for the score, the same applies here. Here in the sound manager, process sounds, private process sounds. Now here's the big one. This is the finite state machine. Um, its purpose is to direct my centipede to where it's moving. So like I have all these classes. It's pretty much all meant to just like what the centipede keeps track of like one of these individually and it like knows which direction it wants to go. It tells the centipede where to go. Um, every time it runs a all of these have get next date. Is what I'm trying to say. They all get next date because that's their purpose. They're being told what to do next. Each of these, even though it's a lot of classes, they serve their purpose well. And they're basically the reason why the centipede works the way it does, why it turns the way it does, why it moves the way it does, why it might like react differently if it hits like a poison centipede, all that jazz. And to further show how the centipede like finite state machine works, let me show you this. Pretty much the centipede has its current state and previous state. It keeps track of it where it is on the metric grid at all times. Every time it moves to um every single time it moves to a new cell, it tells the current state to get the next state. And it'll return either the same thing if to turn down, to turn left, to go back up, to be poisoned. And then at the same time, this will notify, because this is the head centipede, it'll note after each cell, it'll notify the previous segment what state it is now. So basically, it's a big line of centipede receiving like the same orders. So that's really cool. Explosions. Um, I don't really have a lot here because I never made a factory or recycling pool for my explosions, which I should have. But right here I have my blaster explosion, which activates when my player dies, and then I have explosions for basically almost everything else. The enemies, the mushrooms, um, all that stuff. Yeah. Let me show you the more into the blaster. I've already shown you the available control modes, the of course, the AI, the NPC controls. See here, space here is for shooting the blaster. These are all for movement. In the AI control, I have an iterator here that makes it like stop and move every like 2 seconds. Um, it's always trying to shoot every frame, but it's always gonna like shoot the first minute it like disappears. Um, there's like this is checking its own moves, sort of. It's kind of like its own like state machine, but like kind of not as heavily implemented as the Centipedes is. Let me show you. Yeah, it's fairly simple right here. It it pretty much just every time it hits a border, it changes diagonal direction. This is how the AI moves. This is how both the AI and the good player move. Let me show you how optimized my update function is. Um, so this is pretty much the offset. This is how fast I'm going. This the controller active is what the AI control and the player control is. It computes the next move. It pretty much does all that in there. Um, this is for in case I hit against a wall so that I don't like get clipped into it. Um, impulse, controlling speed. This makes sure I don't like run into a wall. This pretty much updates the sprite.